This is TWiT.
FOSTA, SESTA. We talked a lot about this when it was passed, and it's a hard thing to talk about because how could you be against a law that, puts sex trafficking out of business? That was the whole point of FOSTA and SESTA, the whole idea. In fact, it's in the name, Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act. Allow victims and states to fight online sex trafficking act. I mean, how could that be wrong? It was signed into law April 2018. But even then, we talked about, and a number of people talked about, unfortunate consequences. And I think maybe we're starting to see those. So this week, Tumblr, which was bought from Yahoo by Verizon, is it part of Oath, or is it its own division now? I don't know. Decided that they were going to...
They're changing the name back again to something else.
It's not Oath anymore. I know, I don't know. It's very confusing. They decided that they were going to, for the first time ever, block adult content. A better, more positive Tumblr. I'm not against this idea, but I have to point out that David Karp and Tumblr exist because, I think, of adult content. A huge percentage, more than double-digit percentage of Tumblr's stuff was adult content. I can understand why Verizon may not want to be a curator of adult content on the net. December 17th, all porn-related communities on the platform and will be eradicated. Mike Drucker tweets, "Congratulations to Tumblr for taking a stand against the only thing people still go to Tumblr for." But we've already seen how hard this is to implement. There have been filters on Tumblr that have blocked vomiting unicorns, raw chicken as adult content, and even, what was it, a patent for some sort of device, which I guess it looked like some sort of sex device. I don't know. It wasn't. It's very hard.
Who wants to see raw chicken anyway?
I agree. Block it all.
You really want to touch this stuff before you cook it.
Block it all. This is probably the best article about it from, of course, the great guy at Tech Dirt, Mike Masnick. He says, as we've covered for a while now, FOSTA became law. And this is an example, by the way, of tech companies saying, well, we're going to write the regulations so that a worse regulation doesn't go into effect. Facebook did an about-face on its position. Turns out Sheryl Sandberg decided it was important to appease Congress on something, even though Facebook's own policy team said, no, we can't do that. And Mike says, as we pointed out at the time, this was Facebook basically selling out the internet because it eliminated the 230 exemption, the safe harbor from the Copyright Act, which allowed, meant that companies weren't responsible for that they could be publishers without being responsible for all the content that's on there. It suddenly meant that Facebook was responsible for, Tumblr was responsible for content on its site. Mike says, and I don't think he's wrong, the early indications are that not only will it not help clean up the mess it's caused, it's leaning in on this new puritanical internet it wants to create. Facebook has been sued under FOSTA by someone arguing it's helped facilitate sex trafficking. I want to be clear, I'm not in favor of sex trafficking. But that's not what this law is about. Facebook's put up a whole bunch of new guidelines under the head of sexual solicitation. For instance, you can no longer on Facebook say what your sexual partner preference is. That's deemed as sexual solicitation. Vague suggestive statements such as looking for a good time tonight, sexualized slang, using sexual hints such as mentioning sex roles, sex positions, scenarios, preferences.
Sexual partner preferences. It seems like...
I like men, say. Or I like women, say. Exactly. That's prohibited.
Your sexual orientation, your sexual identity. It seems like Facebook, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like they're going farther than what the law reasonably would arguably require.
Mike makes the point that the bill not only has decreased sex trafficking or even sex ads online, it's just put it underground where it's harder to police. But even more so, and I'm not a prude, but I'm not soliciting on Facebook for partners either. But there's a real concern that this is going to lead to widespread censorship online, and that's what's starting to happen now.
Well, I think, got to go back to, since Facebook owns the platform, any platform owner.
They can do whatever they want.
They can censor anything they want.
Mike says this. Obviously, this is Facebook's platform. It can make whatever stupid rules it wants. But it's not difficult to see how this is likely to impact all kinds of perfectly acceptable content on Facebook. It also seems quite hypocritical, Mike writes, given that Facebook's early versions were very much about helping college students hook up.
Well, if people don't like it, there's a solution to that. You leave Facebook and do something else.
I agree, as long as FOSTA SESTA doesn't make it global. Right?
Yeah.
That's the real problem, is that now we have these laws and there's a real concern that there is a new prudishness, a new censorship that's going to sweep the internet. And again,
and if that's the
Mr.
case,
Patrick Beja, who lives in a country where bare breasts are actually printed on the money, clearly this is a potential problem. And this is an example of where regulation maybe can be misguided with all the best intent.
With all the devilish advocating I can muster, I won't be able to say that this is a good law or well-written law. Yeah. But the bare-breasted thing is actually a constant issue with Facebook and other social networks, because when they decide to take away some piece of content, they do it based on very often American cultural context and references. And for us, we have bare-breasted women in ads on the sidewalk to advocate to sell.
It's on your.
Yeah, it's on the money. It's like even cosmetic products and stuff like that. It doesn't.
Have you ever been to the beach in France?
Exactly.
But it's cultural. It's not considered sexual in France.
No.
Any more than a bare-breasted man is considered sexual in America. Well, except for you, Sam.
Yeah. it's certainly, it's not asexual, but it's not a big deal. But I mean, this implementation of the law seems like you can't say I'm straight or I'm gay. I don't see really how that relates to, it's certainly a very, 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 very conservative interpretation of that law, and I don't see how it can be implemented and acted upon. I think
Facebook is covering themselves. They're trying to make this. They are trying to make this very. They have to come up with what they believe are the standards for their site and how they want to go, what direction they want to go. And yes, it's in the spirit of this law. And of course, the law is designed to do one thing, but Facebook's saying, well, here's the things that we hold true on our site, okay? We don't want you talking about this. We don't want you presenting that. And yes, there's always going to be some gray area where there's like an overlap with, a group, these groups and things that might be on there that use this to communicate and talk and stuff like that and to talk about sexuality. But I don't think if I posted on my thing, on my status update looking for a good time tonight, that would be pulled down immediately. I mean, I could be wrong.
Say it would be.
Well, so it will. I mean, I don't know. I haven't
try it. Why don't you try that, Rich?
We'll see what happens. I'll see what happens. We'll do a little Facebook experiment.
No, you shouldn't do it. Get somebody in our audience.
But I don't know. But the reality is, I mean, they want to make it so that if they take something down, they have the sexual solicitation. This is under community standards, section 3, item 15. And they're talking about sexual solicitation. Will that overlap into other things? Probably, but
there was also
it depends
how
you're
sexual
posting
slang
and what
in there too, wasn't?
Yeah, sexualized.
But again, it's how you're posting it. If they're using this to take down groups that are using this for sexual solicitation and sex trafficking. They want to make sure that they're protected because they said, hey, look, you can't do that. And I don't care if your group has 100,000 people in it. If you're posting this kind of stuff, we're going to take it down. They're protecting themselves. But if I want to post something that's silly or some sort of meme or something that's, sexual in nature, not that I do that, but I don't know. I mean, yes, it could be taken down. Will it happen overnight? Will their computers do it? Will their machine learning? Who knows? But they're protecting themselves because of this law. And no, it's not going to be perfect. But again, it's what direction does Facebook want to go in with their platform? Tumblr decided, like you said, Leo, Tumblr was sort of known for this in a certain way. Like millions of people knew Tumblr for what it was, and many more millions knew for the other side of Tumblr, right? Facebook doesn't want to have that other side, that that secret side that
frankly,
the average person doesn't know.
I've wondered for years why Tumblr didn't do that too, because it could get pretty nasty, and yet Tumblr is a great place. It's kind of I called it the live journal for the 21st century. It's a great place for young people to blog. I mean, it's a nice platform.
It might have been the pornographic or erotic part of Tumblr might have been first because of the Apple ban on the app. It might have
it was totally in response to that.
Up.
But that's the point, is because of FOSTA SESTA, you're no longer covered by Section 230. You are liable for the content on your platform. So everybody, Facebook, Tumblr, but everybody else is going to start looking at this and saying, are we liable? And do we need to do something about it?
Well, and to your comment earlier about, does this presage a broader censorship because of these laws?
Exactly.
Is there potential that perhaps this is a violation of the First Amendment and could potentially the whole law could be potentially unconstitutional? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Is Facebook protected by the First Amendment? I mean, is it? It's a private website that they it feels like it's
they're not. But if the government decides to try to force companies to do something to go more broadly with censorship using this law, then perhaps that could be seen as a violation.
So let me.
Well, I know Patrick says that we don't believe the government, but I would say if the government came up with this, I think that they looked at it and specifically targeted what they wanted to with this. Yes, can it have a chilling effect in other aspects? And companies said, look, we're out of this. We're just not even going to deal with it because it's too much work. I can see that happening, but that happens in a lot of different laws. You know. Gambling and other types of laws where people are like, look, we're not even going to touch this because it's too delicate of a manner to be involved with. So we're out. Peace out.
When FOSTA SESTA was up and voted upon, and we talked a lot about it, it's a tricky thing because it sounds like if you're saying it's a bad law, you're advocating sex trafficking. So let me take the word sex trafficking out of it and talk about what it actually does. In the Communications Decency Act, which was passed in 1996 and really was the law that let the internet happen, created a safe harbor rule in Section 230 that said, quote, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. In other words, you're not liable. You're not a publisher. You're a telecommunications. You're a platform. You're a telecommunications utility. And so by passing this law basically meant all website publishers are now responsible for whatever content's on their site, even if it's published by a third party, especially if it's published by a third party. And the fear was that it would – and then the hard thing is to advocate for this sounds like I'm advocating for pornography, but I am advocating for a free and open internet. And there are lots of places people want to be able to go where they can talk about things freely, including adult topics. And if that suddenly disappears, remember, some of it is like Craigslist eliminating their personals. Big deal, right? Although if you're a sex worker, that is a big deal because suddenly you're pushed back underground again. I think FOSTA and SESTA was a bad idea. I think we should keep an eye on this because this is going to be, I think, a rapidly spreading trend. And Facebook, Tumblr, it's just the beginning.
It seems to me that if that law can be interpreted in such a wide range as Facebook is, doing by implementing those community guidelines, are apparently based on the law, it seems the law isn't precise enough. It's not like the health regulations. It's too vague.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that anyone would be okay with a law that says you can't express your sexual preference on a website, right? So this seems like
does the law say that, or is that what Facebook is kind of?
No, exactly.
Facebook is just saying, look,
That's my point. I'm saying if Facebook can interpret the law in that way and say, well, this is the way we look at what the law says, I think the law is badly written. It's too wide.
But that's Facebook's platform. That's their prerogative. If you're a website that is a website dedicated to all things sex, like a blog or something, they're clearly going to have way different standards. They're still stopping the sex trafficking, but they're saying, yeah, you can talk about whatever you want here. You can post whatever memes you want, whatever pictures you want, whatever thoughts you want. That's the difference here, is that Facebook is saying these are our standards based on this law. And I believe that they can do that. And another website,
they can,
the law has what they want to do and the standards that the law sets, but then each platform sets what they believe their platform stands for and what their members should be able to do and not be able to do. There's going to be a wide range what you can do on Facebook versus another website that's dedicated to all things sex, you know?
Listen, I think that Facebook, of course, they can do whatever they want. I think that's pretty clear, and we've all said it. We all agree. But if they're saying this law is compelling us to prevent you from saying what your sexual preference is, when the law is supposedly about preventing sex trafficking, then there's an issue. And of course, Facebook can do it. We all agree. But if they're doing it because of the law, because of that law specifically, there's a disconnect there. If they do it because they want to do it, that's fine. But that sequence of events seems broken to me.
The problem really is the definition of, well, first of all, they take away Facebook's defense under Section 230. And then they say, well, you can't do anything that promotes prostitution or consensual or non-consensual sex. So that's all, right? And so with the intent to promote or facilitate the prostitution of another person shall be fined under this title. It's so unclear or so vague, and this is really the problem with all of this stuff.
Exactly.
It's very difficult, and so people are going to be, having lost their protections, going to err on the side of conservatively getting rid of, you know, if I say I like guys and I'm looking for guys on my Facebook page, that can be interpreted as soliciting, and that is illegal, and Facebook's liable. And Facebook, I think, reasonably says, well, you can't say that anymore because we don't want to go to jail for 10 years.
So vaguely written law. Imagine if the health code said you can't do unhealthy things. Yeah. Like, what does that mean? Yeah. What?
Huh? Yeah, as long as it's not unhealthy, you can do it.